right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining Tea with Lee. I'm here with your very own bike mayor, Lanrick Bennett Jr. And I just want to start off by saying Lanrick told me that he's going off of coffee and has made the transition over to tea. So I thought the perfect tea for him, which is my personal fave, and I'm totally telling you this because it really is good, is King Cole, okay? This is a double bag, like in each bag. And the gauze is awesome. Like, I know, like seriously, this is like how awesome it is. And I love it. Because one of these is super strong and I love strong tea. And so I said, Lanrick, you got to try this orange Pico tea. I drink this all the time. It is my go-to. I will say it's a little bit hard to find in, like, there are quantities, the big box of 240. For some reason, Toronto doesn't sell that as much. So I got to import it from the East Coast. Like, what? Halifax? So 60s what you can get, okay? So I will appeal to anyone who imports tea. Come on, 240 boxes.
Good tea. It's good tea. I love it.
What do you think about it?
I love it. No, it's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I because I was like, you have to enjoy the tea of orange Pico because it's strong.
Fair enough. Yeah, and it definitely helps with the separation of coffees in the morning. So thank you very much.
Well, whatever I can do. So Lanrick, you are the executive director of the Laneway Project.
I am, yeah.
And it's really super exciting because leading up to this, you've done a lot of community advocacy work and all of those things. And, you are the bike mayor. And so road safety is something that's really important. Building community housing. Those are things I know that are on your plate of things that you care about. But I just want to take a moment and just kind of ask you to kind of introduce yourself.
Well, okay. First off, thanks, Lee, for creating this stage, for creating this space for our conversation. My name is Lanrick Bennett Jr. I've been living in the East End with my family, Sabrina, my two kids, Jack and Zoe, for the past 12 years. I love living in the East End. It's a great community, wonderful space, lots of friends, lots of opportunity.
Yeah.
I put a lot of who I am and what I'm about in the places that I live in the places that I get to travel on by bike. It's a great opportunity right now to be able to look at your neighborhood, look at your community with that local lens and see how you can fit into making it better, not just for yourself, but for the rest of your community.
So we'll start off with the most obvious piece. As a cyclist, road safety. You've been really advocating to make sure that there are bike lanes. What has that journey been like?
And yes, bike lanes, very important. Protected bike lanes are a key ingredient. But let's kind of open it up to just the fact that outside of a car, we're all vulnerable road users.
Yeah.
And we are using public space together. So if you're walking, if you're rolling, if you're on a bike, if you're driving, if you're taking public transit, we're all using this space as a means to getting to places, getting to work, getting to school, going to have coffee, having fun. You're out there, and a lot of the advocacy that I am pushing on right now is understanding why being a vulnerable road user is so important, and how do we prioritize that in the infrastructure and also in the policies that we have at the city level, at the municipal level, to make it safer for you to do all the things that you want to do without feeling that your safety is in question every time you put your foot on a street.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really important. I think we should also duly note that you did actually, as a community builder, community connector, community leader, that you did put your name in to run for municipal council because you believe so much in local politics and how to advocate. Like, you were also on a chair of your local school board, right? Like,
that's
parent
where it starts,
council, right? Parent council.
That is really where it starts. And a nod of thanks to so many that volunteer time to be a part of their their school council and those parent councils that are really looking at how that space, how their schools are connected puzzle piece to the rest of their neighborhoods. It's a time-honored tradition to be a part of just school life, and wonderfully of that it spreads and it definitely puts seeds in other really important aspects of the community. But yeah, really a lot of that advocacy probably started, coming out of volunteering at my kids, both my kids' schools in the East End, and really it was a wonderful time to kind of figure out what lane do you want to get into, what piece do you want to put your headspace in to try and fix.
So where did it start? What was the issue? What was the first thing that you kind of were like, hey, we need to change this?
You know what? Getting to school. Getting to school safely. And I'm very lucky where we live. We were able to walk to my son's elementary school. My daughter, though, went to middle school. Maybe about 20, 25 minute walk, but it could be a brilliant 12 to 15 minute ride. And I remember when Zoe came into the kitchen to talk with Sabrina and I about the fact that at 9, I want to ride to school. And like it wasn't even a conversation so much as I'm going to be doing this, and I just needed you guys to know that I'm going to be riding to school. My wife, who is a avid cyclist, but she is a nurse and is already at work before the kids are even going to school. So it was kind of up to me. And as much as I have this bicycle mayor title, I've only been riding constantly for the last 5 years. So before that, public transit was kind of my thing. And I worked as far north as North York, working at Queen's Park as well. I got myself around by public transit, didn't really drive, but having a bike was a new newness for myself. So went out, bought myself a bike. Zoe and I got training, just kind of feeling how it was to ride to her school, and it was brilliant. There's kind of this magic when you can see your young child take their first ride with a smile on their face, a bit of sweat, but riding into school and seeing her locking up her bike, it was magic. And we were able to do that constantly for a couple of months, and that was actually just before me running for city council. I think what really hit during that time frame was a father was killed on our route. So from our house at the corner of Jones, so we're in the East End, we're in Toronto Danforth, and at the corner of Jones and Dundas, 50-year-old father Douglas Crosby was crushed by a truck making a right-hand turn, heading up Jones Avenue, and where he died was the opposite route of how Zoe and I would get to his school.
Right.
And that morning we missed that crash by about 20 minutes.
Wow.
And it was a wake-up call. The big difference with cycling infrastructure in cities in general is that you've got areas that are definitely a protected infrastructure. So there's a separation between bikes and cars, but on this street, it was just paint. And paint is in a force field.
Yeah.
Zoe kept on riding for maybe another 3 to 4 months, but she gave up. She gave up because as much as she felt confident riding, she always had in the back of her head that I might get hurt because I would ride in, I'd be riding in the street as kind of that buffer between her
Yeah.
and the cars. And in her mind, and I love her for it, in her mind, it was, I'm not going to put my dad in danger. So I'm going to go on bike strike. I'm not going to ride anymore. And to this day, Zoe has not been on a bike. So, I mean, not to put a pin on this, but the advocacy that I am doing, the want within the vulnerable road user community, I want my daughter to be able to ride again. Like that's where I'd like to get to, where she feels confident that she can get back on a bike and be able to ride to her school and be able to bring other friends
for sure
onto those rides as well.
And I mean, like, I'll tell you, like, I totally, like, this resonates for me because we know this can be done. It's just like about political will, about making it so. Because when I lived in Denmark, in Copenhagen, everybody rode their bikes. Even the prime minister rides their bike, right? And they actually have like a laneway, and it's segregated in most places. And there are little bike lights that are specific to bicyclists.
Sure.
And when you have a mass of people who are using it, I mean, think about China also, people using bikes. We're doing so much good for our health. We're doing so much good for our environment.
Yep.
And, it's just, there's so many positive ticks. And how do we do that, right? How do we continue that? And I have my own children that I want them to be able to ride their bikes, but I too am scared. Like, I used to live downtown, and I remember I rode up until I was pregnant because I was like, streetcars, tracks, like I didn't want to get stuck because other drivers are like, wait, there's a bike. I'm not even used to this.
Yeah, I know it is. And, testament to many of the examples across the world of cities that have embraced, not allowing drivers to be the pinnacle of what's on your street. It's not so much that a city like Toronto needs to literally copy and paste everything that's going on in Copenhagen, everything that's going on in Amsterdam or whatnot. We have the tools and talent here in Toronto. There are great examples throughout the city of infrastructure that was built specifically to prioritize vulnerable road users. You touched on it. That political will to start connecting all of these, very segregated, very siloed infrastructure pieces. It's tragic because if we really did kind of put that onus on wanting to keep people safe, like that almost needs to be that is the line.
Yeah.
How do I make sure that regardless who you are, where you live, how you get to where you go, that your safety is top of mind? If we could do that, I mean, I'm not saying that people are going to be riding on the Gardner Expressway or the 401.
Sure.
It's streets. It's how we get to and from. You make those streets not just as safe as possible, but safe by design.
Yeah.
Like, you're building that with the purpose to make sure that no matter how you want to get around, the options are there for you to do it safely. We're not there yet as a city. We're not there yet with the leadership that is here on the ground within our wards. We need those councillors to have the political will, have the political courage to want to say, all right, I've seen enough of the carnage that can happen on our streets, that I want to make that change and make it deliberate. We don't have that yet.
So, okay, how do we get there? I mean, so I want to ask this question. When it comes to road safety, and we're talking about making a change from the ground up, from a grassroots up, how do we get there?
Yeah, it's not an easy play, and definitely you want community to be involved in being able to craft how you go about making those changes. I think one of the easiest ways is gathering community, showing them, giving them those little blocks of purpose. So how do we get to school in the morning? Like, use that as an example of does it make sense that we have, you know, a slew of SUVs dropping off our kids every single morning? Or would it be better put forth where we can allow these children, these, you know, young adults to be able to walk and ride safely to the school? Start with those parent councils, get them, you know, involved in showcasing where those gaps are.
So number one, start with parent councils. Start with the school. Great. Okay. So step one.
Schools are great. That's definitely an easy piece. But also, you know, talking to businesses, and not just the business community in general, but outside of what school is. So again, I had touched on the fact that my wife is a nurse. She rides to Princess Margaret Hospital. You've got tens of thousands of healthcare workers that during COVID weren't on public transit, but were utilizing bikes to get to Hospital Row. And to see these teams of people, you know, streaming across Danforth and Bloor to get to University Avenue, to get through to, you know, the 5 or 6 hospitals there, such a moment of clarity when it came to, you know, hey, here's purposeful infrastructure that's built. So looking outside of your very local space where schools are, looking and broadening the fact of how do I get to work safely? What are those examples of showcasing me getting from point A to point B safely as a worker in any capacity?
So, okay. So step one, parent council. Step two, talk to businesses. But in the sense of when you give the example of your wife and all these teams of nurses riding to work, having the union or someone like talk about like we need to create more space so that you start creating a grassroots network of people saying we need better road safety. We need more bike lanes. We need and then who do you talk to? Who do you raise this?
Who do you raise it with? I mean, our streets are definitely, you know, we've got a provincial level there. I think where you really want to hit is the municipal piece. You want to talk with your counselor. You really want to talk to your counselor. And, you know, I think the mindset of, well, if my counselor doesn't ride a bike, you know, it doesn't really matter. No, I mean, everyone walks who can, and this is not, and I should clarify when I say walk that I am not discounting people that have disabilities that can't walk. So if you're rolling to work, if you have to drive to get in, so you're looking at your municipal leader as kind of that
voice.
Yeah, that voice, that arrow to say, I need you to be, you know, the catalyst to want to make that change.
So I'll be really honest. A lot of people who are going to be watching this will be like, well, I'm one. Can I make a difference? Like my kids, I don't have any kids. My kids aren't in school, or, you know, like I'm just one person. Will that one person make a difference if they email their counselor, or like, how do they get involved?
I mean, you've got to start, you got to start with what you have the bandwidth to do. So as one person, send that email, make that phone call. But if you can, make another phone call to a friend, make another email to another community member. Make sure that even if you are that one person, that you are supporting the means for change. So if you're able to give just that little bit more, those one people, that single individual starts to spread, starts to grow the movement. And I know that there is a narrative of the war on cars. A great podcast, by the way.
Okay. Awesome. War on cars.
You know, yes, there is a war on cars. There is a war on the fact that our cities have given up so much space to vehicles. And this is within vulnerable road users. This is in creating housing. This is in protecting the environment. We have given so much to the car to the car itself that it's a needed breath. It's a needed pause to say, why are we giving so much space to this vehicle? How can we as a city, how is we as a society, as a community, kind of take away that power that the car has had? So the narrative of war on cars, it makes sense, and it is kind of true that we're battling something that has been ingrained for almost 100 years. And to disconnect, to start to dismantle that, it's going to be painful, but in the long run, it's going to be something that is going to be so important, not just for you as an individual, but for how we grow, how we keep ourselves safe, how we thrive in our cities and communities.
Like, here's the thing. I live in the East End, right? We live in the East End. So we have the ability, we live in close proximity to schools, like walking distance to cafes, restaurants. Like, we're in the city, right?
Yeah.
Realistically, there are lots of people who live out in the suburbs where you have sprawling suburbs where just to get out of the suburb can take, if you were to walk it, 10, 15 minutes.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So, up in Markham, where I grew up, you're starting to see these laneways happening, right? Like where they have a bike lane and everything. And I think it's great for people doing local stuff.
Sure.
But I think it comes back to the next thing I want to talk to you about is housing, right? Like, and community. And how do you, bridge and connect like spaces that are close, like, that you have the amenities and all those type of things. And I don't know, like, I guess when I think of suburbs, you drive everywhere. Yeah. And if we're thinking about the war of cars, people will be like, yeah, but I can't get anywhere with that car.
No, this is so not to discount living outside of the urban crush. And even within the city of Toronto, we've got Scarborough, we've got Etobicoke, we've got North York. Those are kind of even East York to an extent. We've got those suburbias within the city. What I can tell you about housing, we've done it all wrong. Okay. I'm not preaching to the choir, but I don't think I'm bringing anything out that hasn't already been, touched on just in general of sprawl should not have happened. Okay. Sprawl was wrong. But we are in the boat that we're in right now. So how do we start to remix, recalibrate how these suburbs work? What is a viable way of making it a much, not so much more dense, but definitely a better balance of how we get to places, the places that we need to get to, the places that we want to get to. Again, huge biking person, but I know the bike is not just the one and only way of getting around. There is, a really good want to start to bridge those gaps of, if I'm in the suburbs and I'm trying to get to a mall, could I bike myself, 3 or 5 kilometers to the closest bus stop or train stop or whatnot? Yeah. How do you start to connect those feeds totally so that as much as, it would take 15 or 20 minutes to get myself out of, that suburban, center to get myself somewhere else. But can I use these connected feeds to get myself to those other areas? But you were talking about housing, and I mean, I think that there is a purposeful want to say that there's no problem. I like where I live. I want to keep the character of what this place is all about. I like the quietness and the sereneness of me not having this encroachment of other people. But we're in a housing crisis. And we've been in a housing crisis, for probably over a decade. It's just now that it's really, we're really touching on those blaring alarms saying that we need places for people to live.
Yeah.
And it's up to all three levels of government to be able to find the funding, find the money, find the opportunities to be able to build more that allows more people to be able to afford to even be able to get into the housing market. I volunteer with a group called Housing Now TO. It's Toronto based, but a lot of the things that we are doing right now are things that definitely can, go outside of the Toronto sphere. But we're looking at space. We're looking at opportunity. We're looking at those nodes within communities where, you know what, that parking lot that sits empty for 3/4 of the day, how could we maybe transform that into viable, affordable housing?
Yeah.
There's opportunities that literally sit on top of subway stations. We're building the new Ontario line here in the East End, and we're looking at all of these stops that are being built through for the subway. And you're kind of thinking, why couldn't we put housing on top of a subway station? Why couldn't we insert schools into the podiums of these? There are so many amazing opportunities to build housing. There is a lack of courage, a lack of wanting to take that next step in trying to think, thinking outside of the box. I know it's a very old cliche, but it's one of those things where you really do need to start looking outside of the mold of how we've built cities over the last, 150 years. And it's not just about building 80-story condos.
Yeah.
It's about how can I start to mix and match many of the components of what we need within our life.
Yeah.
So you need the housing for sure. You want to be there for the transportation. You want schooling. You need healthcare. You need, social. You can build that all not in one condo building, but you can build it within a 500 meter, 1 kilometer area where you can get to places.
Okay, so I actually want to step back for a moment. The piece that you talked about, it lacks courage. It lacks courage to build more density or to think creatively and outside of the box and looking at spaces that, are probably underutilized or has only one use.
Yeah.
Like parking spots, right? Like parking spaces. And even though it's like a big lot with a lot of space for cars, which goes back to our conversation about how our infrastructure is based on cars, how do you take that, not eliminate it, but find a way to integrate it? So where does the courage have to come from? So that,
it's twofold. No, that courage is twofold because you need communities, you need the people that are already living there to think outside of their comfort zone, where you as a community member, you as maybe even a community leader need to have the mindset that there are residents that don't even live here yet. I need to be thinking about how I bring them into the fold of creating this space. Yeah. It's not just about me. It can't just be about me. It's got to be about how am I including others into that mix. So the courage is definitely, wanted on the immediate community piece, but it's also on our elected leaders. I know we don't have term limits in our local democracy, in any of our levels of government. So the fact that many of our elected leaders literally get in and then, you've got this 8 to 12 month honeymoon period, and then you're campaigning for the next 2 to 3 years so that you can still have the job. We almost need a disconnect on that. You are, as an elected leader, you're there to hopefully represent the community, to allow the community to move forward, to do those things that make living, in your town, in your city, and in the places that you are better. It can't all be about how am I going to get reelected. You need to almost put forth ideas and seeds that if you're not there, it's okay.
Yeah.
If someone else has voted in, that's all right. You've already started building the groundwork to allow bigger and better things to happen. There's where the lack of courage is. It's not even so much about the fact that they don't want to do things. They're not creating the bandwidth to even get into that conversation. It's, I need to get reelected again, right? And let me.
How do we change that? I mean, because look, we're involved with BIAs, right?
Yep.
Business Improvement Associations, and getting funding so that they can stay alive and keep cultural areas going, keep sectors going. I mean, COVID really impacted a lot of people.
It did. Yeah.
And we also know that our counselors in the Toronto area went from covering one area to double the area.
Yes.
And so the capacity isn't always there. And even the courage of whether it's an elected official, the courage of the individual, the courage of a parent, the courage of, businesses and union leaders, people are so busy. People are so overwhelmed.
I hear
and
you.
even like thinking about, like, it's so thinking about the people who have yet to move in, people who aren't here. Those people don't even know that they should care about this. So
Right.
how do we engage people and cut through all that noise so that people can say, hey, let's stop for a moment and think about what matters. What is it? What's the fabric that connects us? Roads are one thing that connects communities. And roads, when you connect a community, you build a community and the infrastructure that goes around it. And I mean, I will say that for me, I see this in every as a realtor, when I go out with people and we look at properties, number one, transportation.
Yeah.
Number two, they're like, can I walk? Can I walk to a cafe? Can I walk to a restaurant?
What are
Can I
those
get
amenities?
my groceries?
Yeah.
Where are those amenities?
Yeah.
It's like transportation, community, and being able to access that in, a lot of people who I represent are like, at the end of the day, after I come home from work, I want to be able to be in my community. So how do we create more of those spaces? I mean, and they're like, I don't want to think about anything. That's it. But if they don't think about it,
Right. Yeah.
we don't have that opportunity.
That engagement, that community engagement is such a hard fabric right now to put together. And you're right, people are busy. How do we make it easier? How do we make it so that your engagement is a part of your day?
Yeah.
It's, I've gone to work, I've gone to school, I've gone to play. I'm able to, put myself into the neighborhood mix. I love leaning on, they may not like me saying this, I love leaning on our public libraries. We're really lucky here in the city of Toronto. And many cities actually have robust libraries, but I particularly am engaged in the Toronto Public Library system. We've got 100 of them across the city. They are really considered social infrastructure.
Yeah.
These are kind of our cultural and community hubs. And I love the mindset of being able to check in your local library to kind of get a pulse of what's going on in my neighborhood. We're literally down the street. So we're on Gerrard here.
Yeah.
We're down the street from a wonderful library, not even, we're talking like 250 meters away from where we are here. It's one of the only places, only spaces in the city where it doesn't matter how much money you make, it doesn't matter what you're wearing, who you are, what you are. You get to walk into the space and it opens up opportunity. And
So
it's not just—
I love that. Okay, so I'm an avid library supporter. And I know you are too, because you and Jack, from a social advocacy perspective, went to 100 libraries in Toronto by public transit.
Yep.
And I mean, I think that was really fascinating in terms of highlighting all the libraries. And I'm sure you can talk about it, because when I travel around the world, people will have touristy places that they want to go to. I always put a library, like the central library of the city, as a place that I want to go to. There's something about being around books. There's something about knowledge, and it's a space for community where people who may not have computers can access it, where people can acquire knowledge, have help and supports. Like, I think libraries are so important. So please go to your local library. That's my number one thing. Go to your local library.
But I mean, we're talking about engagement. We're talking about, you know, how do we bring in a ability for people to want to be a part of what's going on. And, you know, libraries are that physical, you know, just space. What's inside of it, on top of those books, on top of those computers, is space and opportunity for dialogue, space for us to be able to, you know, have that 5-minute, you know, check-in, or that 45-minute community, come on in. We're going to be talking about, you know, the next steps of what we're going to do. I want to lean on the library, not to put pressure on our library and the staff, but I want to use that as and not even a quick fix, but a definite stake in the ground to say that let's utilize this opportunity, this infrastructure piece to be able to call in the community and really start rolling out the roadmap of where we want to go. Where we are, we see where we are. We see those gaps. We see those problems, those frustrations. But all throughout that, there are not gleaming pieces of greatness, but streams of opportunity for us to be able to say, we can make those small incremental jumps. We can make those grand wants. We can really, you know, make the difference that we all want to do. And I know that sounds very like, oh my gosh, kumbaya, just get it all together. It's possible because I don't see how this city would have, you know, come together without people being a part of its motion forward.
Okay.
And
so about the people coming together in this motion forward, how does that relate? Why do we need libraries?
Oh, why do we need libraries? Wow. I mean, I touched on the fact that here's a space that doesn't ask you to put money forward, doesn't ask you what you do in life, doesn't ask who you love, doesn't ask what your preference is. The door's open. You know, 9, 10 o'clock, it's open. Finish at like, you know, 7, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, some of them in the evening. It's a place where youth and seniors can be together. It's a place where someone that has a shown disability or a hidden disability can interact fully with able-bodied people. You're looking at you're almost looking at a UN type space that at least in the city of Toronto, we've peppered them in 100 different neighborhoods that allow for people to do more. The books are there for sure, but you touched on it. There's knowledge in those spaces, and we haven't. I don't even think that we have done enough to highlight just how important that social infrastructure is as a game changer, as a game changer for how our cities can grow and thrive.
Okay, so we need libraries. Okay, one of the things I definitely want to talk about, because you are the executive director of the Laneway Project.
Yeah.
Can you talk, because especially in Toronto, we have a lot of housing and there's space. There's laneways in the back. And now you see laneways are being named because people are actually creating housing situations in the back of it.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what your work is and how Laneway Projects came together? Because this didn't happen overnight.
No. So the Laneway Project, and let me just, you know, clarify, like as the executive director, I've been in this wonderful position for the last 7 months. The founder and executive director, Michelle, had passed away 2 years ago. And so coming into this opportunity, the Laneway Project had been around for about 7-8 years. And its founding, its purpose was to look at spaces that were underutilized. When you talk about laneways, when you hear about laneways, the first two things is it's where the garbage goes or something illicit is happening in those spaces. And Michelle really kind of took that as a challenge of how do you turn the attention to not what the narrative used to be, but what's the opportunity that can be brought forth. And these are underutilized spaces. These are usually spaces, at least here in the city of Toronto, where, a car will go through and it'll go into a garage or something like that. So, you touched on housing. The Laneway Project in general, we're not housing specific, but we're definitely housing. We know how important a laneway can be as an opportunity for the ability to build housing. There's also the ability to build urban parks. There's the ability to create corridors of safety. We had just finished actually a project where 80 community members, where their garages basically touched onto this laneway, were looking at ways of allowing their young students to be able to walk to school safely. They didn't want to use the busy road that was close to their house. How can we have, a bunch of kids from 7:30 in the morning to like 8:45? And from, about 3:30 in the afternoon to 5, be able to safely, just
ride their bikes,
walk, do whatever you want, but be able to do it safely. So you had on the local level, all of these community members putting up their hands going, hey, we're going to block off this time frame and this time frame to make sure that these, young people are able to, with or without parents, be able to walk safely to get to their school. So the Laneway Project is really there in a way to help bring community, bring local leaders, bring businesses together to talk about underutilized spaces and how your laneway can do so much more than just be a corridor for cars. The ability to transform all 2,500 laneways is definitely, that would be wonderful. We're not there, and it's not even something that we're aspiring to, but, showcasing these laneways across the city just adds to the opportunities that are there for your local laneway to be transformed into something, magical, something different. We work with hundreds of artists across the city. We are so blessed and so lucky to have such a art-filled and art-funded piece in this city. So we work with muralists. We work with so cool. Organizations like Trees for Life, and Not Far From the Tree, where we can actually bring in urban plantings and trees into the mix. We work to, put benches. Why would you want to put a bench in a laneway? How you can kind of make the opportunity to change the space in itself, where you could actually even, dare I say, not have cars at all. And really be able to just say, all right, you know what? This specific laneway, we're going to make it an urban park, and we're going to make it a place where you can explore, sit down, take it all in, take the city away from, your regular street fare. There's potential in underutilized spaces, and I really see the Laneway Project being a catalyst in being able to showcase and highlight those spaces across the city.
I love it, Lanrick. That's so awesome. I mean, because this is all interconnected, right? From road safety and creating, safer roads for people to like walk, ride, roll, whatever it is that they need to do, but also looking at housing and building community and underutilized spaces in places that people would never normally think about. It's like, if this is the space that's between like main roads, which could be used as a safe corridor for kids going to school. That's one option. Or a second option of a place where people can hang out to make it a bit more safe, right? And so it's just like kind of interesting how everything is all interconnected in many ways, because, from being the bike mayor, from being an urban environmental activist, from being a parent council leader, and how we can make and shape the spaces that we live in, it really comes to just having the intention to do it and then talking to your friend saying, okay, I might just be one person. I've got this idea. What can I do? And then you build community and you create the groundswell where more and more people talk to each other. And then that's how we can influence, or at least put a little bit of pressure and awareness to the local leaders to say, this is something that matters. We want to create safer spaces and for our kids, right? And so
for everyone. And I mean, I'm very lucky having children. We have kids, and it's a blessing in itself, but this is for everyone. This is open to the fact that we want better because it matters enough that we want to see that change, be able to give everyone the opportunity of a safer life within our city.
Okay, I love that. I want to end on one thought. Okay, everyone. Right. So Lanrick's favorite quote, is not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And those who say it can't be done are usually interrupted by others doing it. James Baldwin. Tell me about that.
Oh man. If you don't know who James Baldwin is, please look him up. I'm not even going to I cannot give a proper definition of the words, his meaning, his full scope of him just being this pillar of excellence. Please look him up. Go to your library, find out who this man is. He is inspiring in so many ways. Those two quotes play on a lot of where I started before I even became an advocate, and that was my time at the Second City. And if you don't know who the Second City is, this is an improv-based company that brought you SCTV and John Candy and Eugene Levy. It's improv in its best form. And I was a producer there for 4 years. The crux and the basis of improv is yes and. Yes and is one of those courageous things that you do on stage, because you can say no to things. You can say yes but to things. But to say yes and, it's almost a gift. It allows for the story to continue. And within society, within city building, within all of those aspects that we've talked about today, that courage to say yes and missing in so much of what we do. I want to be able to say yes and to things. I want other people to be able to build on those nuggets of opportunity. And that's kind of the thing. When you see two improv artists up on a stage, they're giving gifts back and forth to each other. When you're yes-anding, when you want that story to continue. I see that in our cities. I see that in our communities. We want the story to continue. We don't want it to just end. We don't want to, say yes just, to kind of push people aside. That yes and brings people in. That yes and wants you to go forward. That yes and opens the book to a story that may never end. That in itself is opportunity that I hope people would not want to shy away from. So a lot of where James Baldwin, those two quotes and much of his mindset was yes-anding, making sure that the story continues. And I want the story to continue for the city of Toronto and for our communities in general.
I love it, Lanrick. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Lee.
Yes, and... thank you. That was just, I really appreciate having those conversations.
No problem. Thank you so much. Again, I mean, you're giving stage and you're giving, space for these really needed conversations. So blessings to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.